Do you still feel the heartbreak, the grief, the pain of
Assalamu
loss,
alaikum
the
warahmatullahi
hunger?
wabarakatuh. Welcome back to Breaking Stereotypes with myself, your host and presenter of tonight's show, Zainab Zaeem-Sattar. This is my second episode for 2021. Although I'm not giving it an exact title, I did like the idea of calling it Trailblazing Your Identity. So today's show is interactive. The studio line is 0116 4822 You can either text or WhatsApp 077 488 55055, or you can chat through Facebook on Ramadan Radio FM. I do encourage you all to interact with the show because we have got an exclusive guest for tonight's lineup. So before I move on to introduce our lovely guest and do some of our own interrogation with her, just a little bit of background information on the Leicestershire Police Force. And yes, it's not a theme about the career, but you will realise just in a little while as to why I'm giving a little bit of information as to Leicestershire Police. So the history of it is they've been around for more than 176 years. They started off with the establishment of just Leicester Borough Police in 1836. Separate forces came afterwards, and Leicestershire and Rutland both came separately a few years after 1836. But then in 1967, the two forces came together.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and welcome to Breaking Stereotypes with your host, Zainab Zaeem-Sattar. So before I introduce our next guest, who is a celebrity in her own right, and I am in awe of her attending with us tonight, and I'm truly, truly appreciative, I would like to say thank you to all of our listeners and all of our viewers for tuning in, and also to the team behind everything that goes on into producing the show. So, on to who our guest is. I would like everyone to welcome Zenith Irfan. Now, as I said, she is a celebrity in her own right. She is I don't even know how to introduce her. So actually, you know what? I'm going to hand it over to Zenith. Zenith, please, can you do us the honor of introducing yourself tonight?
Thank you so much, Zainab. Assalamu alaikum to anyone who is hearing me. My name is Zainab Irfan, and I'm known as Pakistan's motorcycle girl. And I'm just a crazy girl riding motorbikes, to be honest. I'm no celebrity. But yes, I have been riding motorcycles for the past 8-9 years now. And it changed my life, which is why I'm here to share my stories. So I'm just a simple girl, to be honest, no celebrity.
So humble, so humble. I hope everybody is listening to this, that even though I am saying she's a celebrity, and I know she is because I've been following her for some time now, she's very, very humble. Thank you very much, Zenith, for joining us.
Thank you.
I would like to delve a little bit more into your background before we move on to some of the questions that I have. Now, as you know, I'm also a motorbiker. I'm not a solo female motorbiker. That much is for sure.
Are we live, by the way?
We're about to go live. Assalamu alaikum and good evening to all my listeners and my viewers. Welcome to Breaking Stereotypes with your host, Zainab Zaeem-Sattar. It's great to be back. I've had a couple of weeks away from the radio station, and I am glad to be back with a bang, shall I say. Now, my next guest actually needs no introduction, but for the courtesy of our listeners and our viewers, and for my guest itself, I will introduce him. So on today's Breaking Stereotypes, we have none other than Mr. Tez Ilyas. So, Tez is a British stand-up comedian of Pakistani heritage. His debut stand-up hour, Tez Talks, was an absolute national hit. He's done several follow-up shows with equal success and is about to start his next tour, which is, I have to pronounce this properly, the Wicked Tour, from September of this year. Now, not only is he a comedian, but he's also an actor and quite recently an author as well. So Tez has his own TV show called Tez O'Clock on Channel 4. He's also played one of my favorite characters on Man Like Mobeen, and he has recently released his first book, The Secret Diary of a British Muslim aged 13 3/4. I like the play on the name of that book, by the way. So to all my listeners out there, if you know, you know. So I'm going to bring it round to Tez. Assalamu alaikum, Tez, and welcome to Breaking Stereotypes.
Walaikum assalam. What an introduction.
I'm glad.
It's mad. When you list it all like that together, it is a bit mad.
It's quite inspirational, actually, when you think about it. I mean, when I was doing my research into you, I was just mind blown away. I just couldn't believe everything that you've accomplished. And you're younger than me. So everything you've accomplished in such a short time is just, it's absolutely outstanding.
I can only apologize.
No need to apologize. Absolutely no need. Actually, I am going to start off and ask you, one of my first questions is, what made you choose this career?
It wasn't really an active choice, Zainab. I went to, I had a traditional path that many British Asians and general Muslims do, which is do well at school, do all right at college, go to uni, get a degree, did a master's, and then got a graduate job in London, which took me down there. And it was only really at that stage, I was kind of in my mid-20s, and I was like, you know what, I just need a hobby. I need something to do, because I don't have any family in London. All my family are up north in Blackburn or in Pakistan. So I've got friends in London, but it's not like in the films and TV shows where everyone just lives in the same area and you see each other every single day. You know, London's not quite like that. So I just needed a hobby. And so I started looking for a writing workshop, something to occupy my evenings with. And looking for a writing workshop, I came across a stand-up workshop. And I thought, my friends always tell me I'm funny. Maybe I should give this a go. And this workshop is 1 day a week for 6 weeks. It doesn't teach you how to be funny. It gets you into writing stand-up and the mechanics of stand-up and the do's and don'ts and all that, which was just very, very useful. There must have been about 15 hours on that workshop over 6 weeks. And then at the end of it, everyone invited their friends and those who wanted to invite their family, invited their families. And we did a massive showcase, and whatever we prepared during that workshop, we did in front of a real live audience. And so that was June 2010. People laughed when I wanted them to laugh. They laughed in the right places. And then ever since then, I caught the bug, and I just started doing it. So it wasn't anything that came out of any burning desire and ambition to be a comedian or be in front of the camera or anything like that. It was my kismet. It was just Achanak. I was like, oh, that sounds really, really interesting. And I think I might be right at it. Maybe I should give it a go.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. My personal opinion when something like that happens is it's because it's meant to be. I mean, you might agree, you might disagree on that point, but if it's meant to be, it will happen whether it's early on or later on in life. The pieces of the puzzle just fit into place. Now, you mentioned, and I'm trying not to fangirl here, and I am going to have to do a shout out now. Irfan Murrajani, who came to see you a couple of weeks ago in Covent Garden, told me that you are very sharp and astute, and make sure I don't fangirl here. So I am very, very trying to be very careful here, right? But I really do want to ask you about the challenges that you faced growing up in Blackburn. Did you have any with friends and family? I'm from Bolton, and I've not got enough fingers and thumbs on my hands to describe the elements of challenges and obstacles I went through. So I'm curious to know, did you have any challenges, family, friends?
What, to do this or in general growing up?
Well, to do with this, because you mentioned that it was in June 2010. You were in London, so you were well away from your family members. And then you had the opportunity to invite your family as well. So, okay, let me rephrase the question then. When was the first time you told your family, and were they supportive?
Oh, okay. So I didn't invite them to that gig. I invited my friends who lived in London to that gig. I didn't invite any family. I don't think I told my family for a few months later when I started gigging on the open mic circuit and it became a proper hobby. And I was like, okay, maybe I want to take this further than just doing it a few times. And then I told a few of my cousins. And I remember one of my cousins was like, sorry, beg your pardon, put his finger in his ear just to make sure he was listening properly. Like, sorry, repeat that again? You said you're doing stand-up comedy. What? So I had a bit of that, but they were all kind of like, if you're enjoying it, keep doing it, I guess, that sort of thing. Remember when I told my mum, she wasn't very keen. Mum's much more traditional. She was happy with the career that I was doing, and she kind of thought of it as a kind of a waste of time, the sort of thing that you might have heard yourself, Zainab, about these sorts of careers, which, I wasn't annoyed about that. I'm like, of course, it would be weird if my mum just turned around and went, yeah, shabash, but go and do comedy. It's like, where would that have come from? That would be so weird. Because she doesn't have there's nothing in her life experience to make her go, yeah, my son's going to be a stand-up comedian. Wicked. That's great. There's nothing in her life experiences that suggests to her that that's a good idea. So, I'm not annoyed at those family members who didn't straight away were like, oh yeah, you're doing the right thing or whatever. No, it's, everyone lives their own experiences and they can only view through their own experiences what things are brought to them. So when I'm saying to my family members who are a bit older, I want to be a stand-up comedian, they're comparing that to their own life experiences. And if they've come here or, their parents have come here to build a better life, which largely means education and business, and suddenly you got me going, I want to prance around in that. Obviously, they're not gonna be like, nice one, bro, go do that. So they didn't really push back. They weren't like, you can't do it. But there wasn't like, oh, what are you doing? Because also they knew, because I was in London, living my own life, they couldn't really stop me anyway, because I was out of their reach. If I was living in Blackburn and maybe working in Manchester and commuting every day, and suddenly then I'd come across stand-up comedy as a thing that I wanted to do, I think that would have been a lot tougher.
I agree with that.
Even at my big age, I think that would have been a lot harder to be like, yeah, I'm out every single evenings. Don't worry about me.
It's lack of awareness as well. I mean, like you said, we are a product of Asian parents, and for them it's all about coming to the UK, and it's all about that education and prospering academic-wise as opposed to practicalities. I mean, I refuse to move back to Bolton. I've got my reasons for not moving back, but I've got 3 older brothers, and I ride a motorbike. So for a Muslim British female with children to ride a motorbike, I really can't see myself riding up and down outside my dad's house on a main road with my gang of motorbikers. So, I appreciate what you were saying. So you were in London and you did your stand-up comedy. I remember, I think it was last year, you posted up a video on your Instagram, and it was one of the very first stand-up gigs that you must have done, and you were in this suit. I think it was a black charcoal grey kind of suit. Was that the first ever one that you did?
That was the first ever gig that I did. Yeah, that was a little video from my first ever gig. I remember, it might have been a screenshot or a little video. I can't remember what I posted, but yeah, that was because last June, even though in the middle of the pandemic, that was bang on. 16th of June was my 10-year anniversary from my first ever gig. So I had to mark that occasion. Obviously, it's a shame that I couldn't mark it with a gig or something, but I wanted to let people know that I've been on this journey, because some people might have only come across me through Man Like Mobeen or when I did Lab at the Apollo, or more recently through sharing my videos and stuff. But I want them to know, if you want to succeed in anything, you have to work hard. These things don't happen overnight. And I've been doing this since 2010, and only in the last 2, 3, 4 years have people paying attention to me. But without all of that training and background and all that hard work I did before, I wouldn't be as good as I am now, and I wouldn't be able to carry on doing what I'm doing, because otherwise I'd just be a flash in the pan, a one-hit wonder. But because I've done that training, and because I was working on stage for so many years, once I have that attention, then I can do something with it.
Yeah, it's what they don't see in the background. It's all the hard work and the tears and the rejections that actually give you the stability and the perseverance to move on as well. And being an on-screen actor, these are things that we don't actually see. And I have to admit, for me, watching you on television, I'm seeing you as the actor that you are. I'm not seeing all the hard work and all the possible rejections or the tears that's gone into you making your career. I'm enjoying the moment, and that's what I'm taking forward. It's only when you start looking into it. So, I'm grateful for my radio show that it's allowed me that opportunity to look into people's background. And that's, that's the whole purpose of my show, to bring people like yourself, the common man, ordinary people who might not necessarily get their 5 minutes of fame. I mean, you are definitely different to that. But for them to get that opportunity to show what kind of inspiration they are to others. So from London then, eventually you must have moved back to Blackburn. I could be wrong when I say that. But what about your local community? I mean, like I said, I've mentioned this before, Blackburn is quite tight-knit. It's very much like Bolton. You've got all the Molanas and all the Muftis and all the Alims walking around. I mean, how did they take your newfound career?
They didn't really, when I was just starting up, they didn't really know. I guess most people kind of knew what I was doing, because I kind of keep myself, when I'm in Blackburn, when I went to Blackburn after, if I went for weekends home to Blackburn, I just kind of kept myself to myself, saw my family and stuff. paused comedy for the weekend and went back to do it when I was in London and stuff. But once I quit my day job and moved back up north forever, and I was doing comedy full time then, and then, people saw me on TV, they might have heard me on the radio, they'll have seen Man Like Mobeen come out. That's when, people started really paying attention and being like, oh, okay, this guy's one of our own. And I have to say, alhamdulillah, the response has been amazing. It's been amazing. Like the people of Blackburn have been, I don't want to speak for anyone, but if I could sum it up, I would say they're very proud of me. And I think it's surreal to me, and it must be surreal to them, that a kid that they grew up with, that they went to mosque classes with, that they messed around with, that they ran away from the police with, that they went to high school with and college with and got into trouble with and had fun times with, is now doing what I'm doing. It's very surreal. Like, I was trying to think, like, if I'd never left Blackburn and that happened to one of my other friends that I grew up with, it would be so crazy to process that. So I'm very grateful for the support I get from home and from all communities, actually. Even the English community in Blackburn have been amazing as well, and they come out to support as well. You've got to understand, because I'm a mainstream comedian. I do the same clubs and shows that the people that you see on TV and 8 out of 10 Cats and all that. I'm in the same comedy bubble as them. So I play the Comedy Store, I play Hot Water Comedy Club, I play Leicester Leicester Festival, I play the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, I play the Comedy Store in London. So I'm in the same boat as those guys. So obviously a significant portion of my fans are also going to be white British people. And then obviously Albany, Muslims, they like supporting their own. So I've got a fan base from that. So my audiences are generally, especially when I go on tour myself, they're generally quite mixed, which I really, really like.
That's fantastic. I mean, like I said to you earlier on, it's an inspiration from everything that you have achieved. I mean, one of the things, I was having a conversation with my sons. I've got 3 older boys. One's a Hafiz, and for him to leave the UK and study abroad, that in itself was a big deal. But now that he's come back and he's settled and he does business here, and my other boys, we were talking that it's actually unusual for Gujarati Muslims or Pakistani Muslims or even Bangladeshi people to go in mainstream for whatever career it is. It could be a footballer, it could be a tennis player, it could be like yourself, comedian, actor. It's quite unheard of. There's not that many opportunities out there. And I don't actually know if you know this, Tez, I am, by career, I'm a lawyer. So there's still, even though there's lots of lawyers out there, and believe you me, there are lots and lots of law firms out there. You walk out the main road here on Evington Road and there's 3 law firms just in one road. There's loads, but it's still very closed off to our community, to the BAME community. It's quite difficult to get into. So you mentioned your network. So as time went on, I take it then that your support network increased?
Yeah, because I started off on the mainstream circuit, doing the open mic circuits, doing the mainstream comedy clubs. And I'll be honest, Albany, our own people only really started paying attention to me when they started seeing me on radio or hearing me on radio, seeing me on TV, enjoying shows that I'm in, enjoying what I was doing. Because our people are not the ones going to comedy clubs. They're not going to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. They're not paying attention to who are the up-and-coming comedians on the mainstream circuit. Even now, the kids, they're paying attention to who's making them laugh on Instagram, who's making them laugh on YouTube, who's making them laugh on TikTok. And they're not paying attention to who's playing the Comedy Store down the road, who's the up-and-coming comedian. And that's fair enough. People have different things that they pay attention to. So that support network that I had in comedy was largely from the mainstream circuit, because that's who I met. And obviously, along the line, I met other black acts, Asian acts, Arabic acts, male and female, who were also, trying to do what I was doing and progress along the mainstream circuit. And we obviously had a bond with each other because we, more similar kind of background and going through the same struggles and stuff. So I made a lot of very good friends. But I have to say the comedy support community largely is quite meritocratic in that if you're good, you'll get on. Like, you'll move forward because you're performing it live in front of the public. And if the public enjoy you, you can't deny that. So even if someone might not like you personally for whatever reason, if you're doing the job on stage, which is make people laugh, you can't deny that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not going to be an easy thing, though, is it? Standing up in front of all those people. I have to bring in something here. I love talking. And those people who know me know I can talk for England, right? And I can carry a really good story. And I'm not bragging here or anything. Actually, I am bragging just a little bit. But I can carry a good story, right? And I love storytelling. But I don't think I could do what you do. I really don't think I could stand up there and think of these jokes, whether it's on the spot or whether it's, pre-planned. I just can't do it. And I draw some of my inspiration whenever I do anything, when I'm entertaining friends and family, from my real life experiences. In terms of your content, would you say that your content is something that you would draw from your own experiences? Or is it something that you work hard at, or does it come naturally? Because I'm presuming here, total assumption here, that it might come a lot easier to some people than it might for others. Am I correct when I'm assuming that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Our brains are wired differently. You're a lawyer. You probably, I'm assuming if you're a good lawyer, you're very good at paying attention to detail. I'm not. I'm not an attention to detail kind of guy. I'm the sort of like, get things 90% done and then it's finished. Whereas you're probably like, no, that last 10%, which is always the hardest part, that last 10%. I hate that last 10%. I'd rather delegate to someone else. I like getting stuff, like, if I was a builder, I'd be so grateful for decorators, because I'd be like, yeah, let me just do the shell and then someone else can take care of it or whatever. Whereas my brain, I guess, works slightly differently. That's not a bad thing. It's just different. In terms of my own content, yeah, all of my content is mine. I create it myself. I then test it in front of a live audience. And if it works, I keep it. If it doesn't, I tweak it. Or if it still doesn't work after 2 or 3 times, I drop it. But I'm very, very proud of the fact that I create my own content. And it's unique to me. I think I've got, even within British Muslims and British Asians, I think I've got quite a unique voice. I don't think there's anyone else who tells quite the same sort of jokes in the same sort of way that I do. And so I'm very, very proud of that. For better or for worse,
You've got the facial features to match, I have to admit that. Because when you are doing your content and when you are up there and entertaining us, each line that you project out, you've got the exact... The face to go with it, whether that's a little twink in your eye or whether it's a little blink, whatever it is, you've certainly got that matches, and it's the delivery, isn't it? At the end of the day, you can have a fantastic joke, but if your delivery is not up to scratch, it's not going to work out, and you have to have that personality, and your personality does shine out. I mean, I'm not fangirling here at all. I am just saying it as it is. It comes out, and I mean, you mentioned Man Like Mobeen. That's how I first came to know of who you are, because of Man Like Mobeen. One day I was literally just bored. I'd binge watch everything I could binge watch. I prayed as much as I could pray. And then I was like, right, what do I do? So I got my shisha out. Yes, I do shisha. Got my shisha out and I sat there in front of the television, put BBC iPlayer on, and Man Like Mobeen came on. And honestly, I think at the end of the first 2 episodes, I was literally on the edge of my seat, and I remember just binge watching and my husband getting really bored. And then when we watched like the 4th episode, he was like, oh, can we watch Man Like Mobeen again? Can we watch the next one? And I was like, yeah, okay. But all the characters bring it together. I have to say you are one of my favorites because of just your delivery, of the way you delivered those lines and the way you were acting. It was for me something that I think I can relate to in some sense. And the reason why I say that is, whilst I am a lawyer, I'm a lawyer not because of my academics. I'm really crap at academics. And I'm probably going to get told off by a number of people here. I think of myself as a very average grade student. Just C's and D's. I've got no undergraduates. I've got post-grad law. But where I excelled was the legal practice course, where it was all about the bail applications, negotiations, and I really excel there. So for me, I became, and I am good at what I do, touch wood, I think I am, but it's all because of experience, not because of the academics. So, you win some and you lose some. So I just wanted to move on to my next question, if I may. Being a Muslim in the times that we live in, and, we do live in hostile and turbulent times, how easy or how difficult has it been for you to gain work? I mean, I know you've mentioned that you are a mainstream comedian. You are now an actor as well. You've been that for a number of years, but you're also an author. But how easy or difficult has it been for you to gain work?
In terms of stand-up, it's not had an impact at all. I think, if anything, it helps because, as I said, stand-up is very meritocratic. And so whether you're black, white, Asian, female, male, all those things, if you can make people laugh, that's what matters. And if you can do that, you will progress. Unless your material is dated and, full of bigotry or whatever, then that's a different thing. But then generally audiences don't laugh at that stuff anymore. But generally, if you're good, you will progress. And so being Muslim hasn't, as far as I'm aware anyway, has never held me back in the stand-up comedy industry in the UK. Whether some people have not booked me because of that, I'm not aware of it. If there are prejudices out there, people are good at keeping them well hidden. Maybe there are. It'd be foolish to think that there aren't, because comedy is made up of people who live in society, and society is very Islamophobic. So it'd be weird if there wasn't any Islamophobia within the comedy industry, because it's made up of people. But it's not had any impact or any significant impact that I'd care to talk about as far as progressing within that. TV, radio, acting, all that sort of stuff is slightly different, because there's only a finite amount of opportunities. And because I'm brown, there are only certain number of roles that I could even apply for. And then within those certain roles, there'll be so many other people, because there are more actors than you think there are, competing for a very, very small number of roles. And so that then becomes harder to progress in terms of acting work, because there aren't that many brown roles written, and then there aren't that many colorblind roles written where the race of the character doesn't matter at all, and it could be anyone. So that does become more difficult. But, alhamdulillah, like you said earlier, whatever is written for me, I will get. Not an ounce more, not an ounce less. So I've become a lot more philosophical in terms of rejection. Rejection still hurts. Obviously, I still get upset if I want something, I don't get it. But I get over it a lot quicker than I used to, because, eventually I'm like, well, that wasn't meant for me. And as soon as that clicks in my head, I'm like, cool, yeah, I can let it go.
It comes with experience, doesn't it? I mean, you probably get over your rejections a lot quicker than I do. I literally throw all my toys out my pram and, have a hissy fit. And then once I've had all of that and it's out of my system, I then put my head down and research, right, what can I do to overcome this? What can I do next to get what I want? And then go ahead and go for it. But from what you've said, that in itself is an inspiration to all the people out there who may want to follow in similar footsteps. So that's really good to know. And I hope my listeners and my viewers who are listening in and watching tonight, if you are thinking that this is a career path that you wish to choose, or you're not sure but you want to test the waters, well, Tez Ilyas here, he's testament to the fact that if you put your hard work in, then anything is possible. And nothing is going to happen without a little bit of hard work. So you have to be prepared to put that work in, and you have to be prepared for rejection as well. And I'm sure Tez will agree to that. So Tez, I like to think, I'm sure everybody else does, hindsight is a very beautiful thing. Would you have done anything differently growing up in Blackburn, or anything in your career that would have pushed you a bit further?
I mean, there are things that I think about, what if that was different in my life? As far as everything up to comedy is concerned, obviously, there were times in life where things were difficult. Maybe I made the wrong choices. Maybe I could have chosen a different path. Maybe I could have studied harder for my A-levels and done a better course at uni. Whatever, all those things I do think about. But then I think I came to comedy so accidentally through Qismat or whatever, that if up to that point, if I did anything differently, I might not have ended up doing stand-up comedy, because it wasn't through ambition or through a burning desire to do this comedy course. It was literally, I saw it and instinctively I thought, yes, I'm going to try and do that. If I led my life any differently up to that point, I wouldn't have been sat there on that date, in the right mood, in the right mind frame, in the right mindset to think, yes, I'm going to say yes to this opportunity. So yes, there are things that I regret, and there are things that I would in that moment probably do differently, to be honest. But I wouldn't change. If I was given a choice now to go and change those things, I wouldn't.
Absolutely.
Because who I am now, the comedian that I am, the person that I am, all of that is because of all the good things that happened to me, but also because of the bad things that happened to me, and because of all the mistakes that I made.
I've got a massive smile on my face, and those people who are listening in, literally, I have the biggest smile on my face. And the reason being is, Tez, you've literally taken my own words out of my mouth, because I have a very shaky history from Bolton to Leicester. And a lot of people know this. I left home and then got married. And I was married to my children's father for 15 odd years before we split up and divorced. And alhamdulillah, I'm remarried now to an amazing man called Samir. And I have to mention his name, Tez, because last time I didn't give him a shout out and he did tell me off. So this one's for you, Samir, unless he's gone to badminton, because he did say he was going to go badminton. But I always, I did say to you earlier, I am the youngest of 3 boys. And it's just men in our family, me and my own cousin sister. And now I've got loads of nieces. But they always say to me, every time, it's quite a hurtful time in their life. And I did put a lot of people through pain. But I'm hoping that over the years, with everything I've accomplished, I've alleviated that pain somehow, somewhere. And I'm hoping that even if they don't say it on their lips, I am forgiven in certain ways. But I always say that, given the opportunity, I would not change anything I did, because everything I did, the good and the bad, has made me who I am today, has made me the strong, independent person that I am, has made me want to achieve more and more. And it's not all about monetary for me. Alhamdulillah, I class myself as a common person, an ordinary person, despite what my career is. And I like the fine things in life, but I still class myself as an ordinary individual, just wanting to get myself out there and achieve as much as I can. So I did smile a lot when you said that, because that's literally my words. I do say that. So it's good to know. Great minds think alike there, Tez. Great minds think alike. So actually that really nicely brings me on to my next question. I mentioned earlier that I am a Muslim female motorbiker. I'm yet to come across another one. There was one lady in Bolton, but she no longer does it, and she was always on her CBT, which is limited to 125cc, and I've got my full bike license. So if you know of anyone, Tez, if you do end up meeting another Muslim female biker, please, put her in mind.
I will. I'll keep my eyes and ears out for all the female Muslim bikers and that, and I'll definitely send them your way.
If you ever have a character that's a Muslim female biker in any shows that you do hit me up on that one as well.
100%.
I constantly feel like I'm breaking down stereotypes. I'm 4'11". I'm 38 years old. I have absolutely no issues talking about my age. And my eldest son's 20. I've got buy one, get one free pair of twins who are 18, going on to 19. And I've got 12-year-olds. So I'm constantly breaking down stereotypes. People are always shocked when, oh my God, you're a biker. Oh my God, you're a mum. Oh my God, your son's 20. Things like that. Do you get that? And if you do, how do you manage it?
To be honest, I don't pay that much attention to what people say or think. I just, I know I've made mistakes in my life and stuff, but, the only person ultimately answerable to is Allah and God and that. And I pray, I pray for guidance, I pray for forgiveness, I pray for that the things that I do are accepted and please Him. And then also, keep my mum happy and that. And as long as my mum's content and happy, I don't really care.
MashaAllah. Beautiful words. I mean, I honestly can't say whether my mum's content with me and her, bless her, I love her to bits, but we do have our moments. And
But that's okay as well. And I'll say this for you, Zainab. It is harder for women. It's harder, even now, like in 2021, it's easier than it probably was when you wanted to go out and do your thing 20 years ago. But it's hard. And if there's any young sisters listening on that, or even older sisters, my age or older, whatever, it's hard. I acknowledge that it's harder for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is harder. All of it's harder. You judge differently for the same sins. You judge much more harshly, even though those sins that, if I commit a sin and you commit a sin, it's, in the eyes of God, it's equal. But in the eyes of society, sometimes it might not even bat an eyelid if I do it or if you do it. And even if it's not a sin, even if it's like riding a motorcycle, that's not a sin.
No, it's not.
But they're not gonna. If I do that, they might be like, "Oh, be careful,"
Yeah.
But if you do it, it's like, what do you think you're doing? Why are you embarrassing why are you embarrassing yourself? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, or like my dad said, have I got no shame? Riding a motor, but he's over it now. He doesn't mind it now, but when he first found out, and you're absolutely right, and I really appreciate you reaching out to our listeners and our viewers. So, to all my audience out there, you've heard it here first, you've heard it from Tez. It is difficult, but everyone's on their own journey, and you have to then accomplish it in your own way, and you've got to make it your own. Don't do any comparisons, and that's one thing I don't do for my life. My children do end up sometimes saying to me that, Mum, you do compare us. And I probably slip into it accidentally, but I certainly don't go out of my way to compare.
Yeah, we're all a product of our upbringing, and what is it? You eventually become your parents, and so there's a lot of unlearning you have to do. Like, you know, all those habits that our parents picked up from their parents. You know, you keep the good, and anything that maybe doesn't work for you, it'll take time to unlearn that.
You got to shed it. Absolutely, got to shed it.
Yeah.
You mentioned some beautiful words about as long as your mum's happy and as long as Allah's happy. You've brought me really nicely onto my next question. So, as your passion as a comedian and actor, I mean, when we talk about actors, I know when I was growing up, it was like, oh, astaghfirullah. You know, that's not a career that we can do. Have you ever found that your career has clashed in any way with Islam, or have you had anybody prejudice you in that way?
No, not in. I mean, I choose not. You know, as far as acting is concerned, obviously, I'm at the beginning of a journey. I don't know how long that journey will be, but I'm definitely at the beginning of it. In terms of, like, I think Man Like Movie is probably still the only. I've done a few minor things, but that's still the only significant thing that I've done. So I'm definitely at the beginning of it. But I think definitely I've had this chat with friends as well that I would probably choose my roles carefully. I wouldn't do anything that would make me change the channel for when I was a kid for watching TV from my parents. I probably won't do on screen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that without getting too descriptive. So in that case, then, you know, I'll be quite careful in the roles that I choose. And I think, you know, there are Muslim TV channels. You know, Mufti Menk is a massive celebrity now, as well as obviously a very good Mufti. So I think being on TV in of itself is obviously not a gunnah, is obviously not a sin, because why are all these Islamic TV channels then? Why have all these Muftis on TV and got massive social media presences? So I think in of itself is not obviously a sin. I think what you choose to do with it, with that platform, and maybe as an actor, what roles you might choose, that is obviously different. And I would personally, myself, obviously each to their own, but I would choose my roles carefully so that they don't conflict with things that I believe or you know, things that my culture cares about.
Okay, I actually have a follow-up question on that one, if I may, and please feel free to say you don't want to answer this, you know, absolutely fine. But let's say you were to take on a role that on the face of it, there was no conflict and everything looked really good, and a couple of episodes in and they decide to change the character. At that point, what would you do?
I think it'd be very... I'll answer the question, but first of all, I think that'd be very rare, because the scripts for the entire season will be written before you start filming. So for them to then change something midway through production would be quite extreme. And I think it'd be quite easy to push back against that, because you're like, this wasn't agreed on before we started. If that happened before we started, so before day one, you start filming, you've accepted the role, you've rehearsed it and everything, and they're like, actually, you know what, maybe we'd like to do this to your character, or maybe we'd like your character to do certain things that I might not be comfortable with, then yeah, I'd have to speak to my agent and maybe speak to my family and just be like, look, this is what they want me to do. Obviously, there's certain things that I would definitely say no to.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then there are certain things where you're like, well, maybe I could push it up to the limit and maybe get away with it. And then there might be a sort of a grey area where you're like, I mean, I could do that, but I don't know. And anything like that, I would probably discuss with my family and anyone significant in my life to be like, this is what they're suggesting. What do you reckon? And with my agent as well, and see what they say.
Again, it comes with the experience as well, isn't it? You know when to say no, when to say yes, and what you can push and where the boundaries are. The reason why I asked that question, I should give you some context, is I actually did have someone I was talking to a while ago now, a couple of years ago, and it was a Muslim female, and she really wanted to get into acting, but these were one of the things that she was really worried about. And I've lost contact with her since, and I don't even know if she's listening into the show. But if there is anybody else who is listening, and you know you feel that can the acting give you a barrier because of your faith, well, you know, you've got somebody here, you've got Tez Ilyas, who's got a lot of experience, and you've heard it here. You go out and try it. If it works, bismillah, you know, brilliant, fantastic, make a go of it. If it doesn't, then, you know, rejig your career, see what else you can do, but try it, don't give up.
Yeah, and it's always just one role.
Yeah.
there might be a role that they want you to do something that you're not comfortable with, and you can just say no to it, and then you can keep auditioning for other roles.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're a comedian, you're an actor. Again, I'm still in awe, and I'm gonna not fangirl as much as I can. But you've got your new book, which is The Secret Diary of a British Muslim aged 13 and 3/4. And I'm smiling because every time I repeat that title, I know exactly what I'm thinking of. So can you tell us a little bit more about your book, which I've actually got on order, so I can't wait to read it.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. So it's a book, it's my memoirs about growing up in Blackburn as a British Muslim, British Pakistani boy, I was, in Blackburn in the 90s. So it's a snapshot of British Muslim life from my perspective at a certain period of British history. And it covers anything that you'd expect it to cover. So the book covers a 5-year period from year 9 in high school, when I'm 13, all the way up to the end of college at the end of September 2001, when I just go off to university. And so the book covers that 5-year period, and it covers everything from being at school, the sort of work that I did at school, how much trouble I got in school, the friends that I messed about with, the teachers that I got in trouble with, then going to college and maybe not doing as well academically as I did in high school, and why that might have happened, and my life going to mosque classes and all the unique things that happen in mosque classes in the UK, and then getting in trouble at home and my home life and mum and dad and brothers and sisters and cousins and all of that big fat Asian family experience, and then also sprinkling it with things that were happening in the real world at that time. Things that, for example, Princess Diana's death happened in 1997. I remember that. So I went on Wikipedia and looked at all the things that happened in all those years across politics, sport, news, whatever. And then it was like, do I remember that? Yes, I remember that. How did I feel about it at the time? And I included that as sort of bit of underrunning commentary under the book. I mean, the book finishes in September 2001. And, it doesn't take a great historian to know what happened that month. It was the month of 9/11, and I went to university like 2 weeks later. And so that is the end of the book, and how I feel about that event, and my caution about going to university now and going out into the big bad world as a as a young British Muslim man going out into the wider world on the back of 9/11. That is where the book finishes. And so the book is very funny in places, it's very sad in places, it's poignant, it's very sentimental, it jogs your memories. We talk about skips and time out and all these things that we had that we loved going to the shop for when we were kids. Elements of when I got into trouble, ran away from the police, got caught by the police doing things. So it's a really fun book, and everyone who's read it has just given me such amazing feedback, because it just brings them back to their own childhood. And for younger people who read it, it's a real good opportunity for them to learn about what their parents or what their uncles and aunts might have gone through. And for an older generation, it's great for them to look at what the generation below them had to go through, which were slightly different challenges to them. So it's a book for everyone from all ages, races, backgrounds. I've had white people who read the book who love it equally, as well as African people and obviously people within our own community as well. So I would really encourage people to go out and buy it and just reminisce and enjoy that period of history told through my lens.
Perfect. Well, my delivery needs to hurry up and arrive now, because I really want to read this book. You mentioned a lot of things in there, and you're right. I've already started reminiscing to that period. I knew exactly what I was doing in Diana's death, and I knew exactly what I was doing in 2001. They are quite, they make a mark in our life, and sometimes they set the tone of whatever else we're going to be doing as well. So that's quite important. One of the things I haven't asked you yet is your teachers, and you mentioned that you've talked about your teachers in your book. Have you actually gone back to your schools and met up with any of your teachers?
I have started going back to my high school recently, but anyone who taught me has largely left. Because we're actually the same age, Zainab. I don't know about school year, but I left high school in 1999.
Yeah, same.
So we are the same school year anyway. So when I started going back to high school and stuff, like there are a couple of teachers who were from that period, but they didn't teach me. So Miss Porter, who's now like the deputy headmaster, she was a PE teacher, but she wasn't my PE teacher. And there was Mr. Garrick as well, who was my business studies teacher. Um, so he's the one teacher that I do remember. But everyone else has kind of left and moved on and done different things. And when you're younger, you just think everyone's old.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, everyone's just old.
Yeah.
Like they might be in their 30s, they might be in their 40s, they might be in their 50s. Obviously, if someone is really old, you realize that. But anyone over 20 is just old when you're in high school. So I don't even know how old the teachers were necessarily. Maybe they were in their 30s, maybe they were in their 50s. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
A lot of my teachers have passed away, unfortunately, but I'm actually I really do want to make a visit back to my primary school, because I don't know about you, Tez, but like I said, I wasn't very brilliant at academics, and I always got told that I'm not going to amount to much. And quite a few teachers, unfortunately, said to me that I'm better off being a housewife. And
wow.
yeah, I actually got told a lot throughout primary, throughout high school, and I have to admit, I didn't really make it easy for my teachers. I was very gobby. I hope my daughter's not listening in, by the way. I was very gobby. I was very naughty. But I always got told that I'm not going to amount to much. And before I even became a lawyer, I'm only 2 years post-qualified. So I did everything. I did my law degree after I had my children. I did my training contract when my kids were growing up and, things like that. So I've had a very difficult and turbulent life. Some of it my own doing, but like I said, I wouldn't change anything. But one day I really do want to go visit my primary school, visit my high school, and just smile at them. Just smile and just, speak to them.
And just be like, look at me now.
Absolutely. And that's because to me, revenge is, and it's not really revenge, but the way I say it is, revenge is a dish best served cold. Put your head down, do your own thing, make yourself and your family and Allah happy. The rest will fall into place. And that's exactly what I feel like I've done. Now, we have about 3 minutes left. So one of the things I wanted to ask you was, do you have any tips for our listeners and our viewers that can maybe help them overcome any fears or any lack of confidence that they may have going into any one of the careers that you've pursued?
Honestly, just try it. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Well, you
Like
get left off the
you might be rubbish, but all right, you might be rubbish in school doing what you're doing now anyway. It doesn't really matter until you try it, until you take that step of trying to do something. You won't know. And also, we live in a different time now. Even from 10 years ago when I started, with our smartphones, we've got TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, whatever the platform kids are using, Snapchat, other platforms kids are using that I don't even probably know about. You can make things and put it out there. I'm sure there are people doing it now. I see all these kids on Instagram and TikTok doing their reels and the TikToks making people laugh and stuff. So there are people doing it now. Whether or not that will then translate into a career, I don't know. Sometimes I look at this stuff and maybe it shouldn't. But if you got a talent for it, then keep pursuing it. Maybe at college you end up doing media studies, or you end up doing video and audio editing. Maybe that's what you pursue in university instead of your normal traditional stuff. Maybe there are times where you need to have difficult conversation with your parents because you're like, I enjoy doing this more than I enjoy doing my academic studies. And hopefully your parents, being of our generation, will be more understanding than our parents might have been. Maybe not always, but hopefully they will be. And just try it. Perseverance is such a big thing. The more you persevere, the better you get at it. I mean, William Shakespeare didn't write Macbeth as his first book. No one creates anything amazing their first go. You can fluke it and you can go viral, but TikTok virality isn't necessarily the same thing as being something genuinely of good quality. So keep pursuing it, keep persevering, keep doing if you enjoy doing it, keep doing it. Get your friends in. Maybe you're not the sort of person that wants to be in front of camera. Maybe you enjoy editing. Then find someone who does like being in front of camera and become their editor and their director and work together and pursue that partnership together. And if you're a person who likes being in front of the camera but is not so good at editing skills, find someone who enjoys doing that bit of it and work together and do it.
Fantastic.
So I would say just persevere and do it.
Brilliant. I appreciate that, Tez. We literally have 30 seconds and I always end up having to do a quick goodbye, which I really don't want to do with you, Tez, because it's Tez Ilyas, and now I am definitely fangirling. So I just want to say a huge thank you, Tez, for coming onto the show.
Oh, you're
There were
welcome.
a lot of people who asked me to mention their names, and honestly, there were so many of them that I can't, so I really do apologize. But you should have used Facebook to say something. But anyway, Tez, thank you so much for joining. Truly.
Thank you. I just want to say that I'm on tour from next month all over the country, and I'm coming to Leicester, I'm coming to Nottingham, I'm coming to Leamington Spa, Derby, so all over the East Midlands. TezIlyas.com for tickets. I would love to see you guys there. It's called the
known as-
Vicar Tour.
I was just about to say it's called the